Dr. Motlatso, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you so much, Lerato. I am going to start by saying, firstly, good afternoon to everyone. I want to welcome you to today's Movement is Medicine webinar. I think it's really wonderful to have you all join us today. And on behalf of the Wits Alumni Relations, I want to thank you for joining us. And for me, when I got the invite, I think this promises to be a really engaging and thought-provoking conversation about something that, for many reasons is a simple concept, but incredibly powerful, and which is the concept of movement. And we will explore different things in today's session. And for example, exploring the science behind the idea of movement really being medicine, from, for example, the health risk associated with prolonged sitting to the benefits of incorporating even small amounts of movement in our everyday lives, as well as how physical activity, as an example, can support our long-term health as well as healthy aging. So without wasting any more time, I'd like to introduce us to the speakers that we have for tonight, or this evening, rather. And the first speaker for our program is Professor Georgia Torres. And Professor Torres is a clinical exercise physiologist, and she completed a master's degree in exercise physiology, as well as has a PhD in the field of metabolic syndrome and exercise programming from the University of the Witwatersrand. Georgia also holds a conditioning and strength specialist, as well as health coaching qualification, and she's currently head of the Department of Exercise Science and Sports Medicine at WITS, as well as an NRF rated researcher. So just to give you more context of the background of Georgia, she has actually implemented exercise-based interventions for chronic disease management using technology to assign, track, as well as coach exercise prescriptions for chronic disease rehabilitation, and has also been the strength and conditioning specialist for national and provincial field hockey teams. She has published over 30 peer-reviewed articles in these research areas. And in addition to this, she is also involved in physical activity education within the undergraduate medical curriculum at WITS, and has implemented the exercise science honors degree at WITS as well. She also chairs the Exercise is Medicine on Campus initiative at the university, and Prof. Torres has been the chair of the EIM initiative in South Africa between 2017 to 2023, and is currently an EIM advisory board member. So a round of applause, if you can, for Prof. Torres as well. The second speaker that we have for this evening is Prof. Patricius. And Prof. Patricius has been in sports medicine practice for over 25 years and is a visiting professor of sport and exercise medicine in the Wits Faculty of Health Sciences, and is as well as a coordinator of the Wits Sport and Health. He is currently also director of Waterfall Sports Orthopedic Surgery in Johannesburg, and is the founder and director of Sports Concussion South Africa. Sports concussion consultant to the World Rugby. He's also a board member of the International Concussion in Sports Group and on the scientific committee for the International Consensus Conference on Concussion in Sports. Okay, so he's also a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine, the Faculty of Sports and Exercise Medicine in the UK, and the International Sports Medicine Federation. John serves on the advisory board of the University of Washington, Seattle Sports Health and Safety Institute as well. And apart from sports concussion, he has an interest in pediatric and aging athlete, joint disease, tendinopathy, and exercise as an intervention in disease as well as injury. He's an editor of the British Journal of Sports Medicine and an associate editor for International journals Current Sports Medicine in the USA, as well as Neuro Surgery. John served 2 terms as president of the South African Sports Medicine Association and is a member of the steering committee for the College of Sport, as well as exercise medicine in South Africa. He has been team physician to school, club, provincial, as well as international sports teams in rugby, cricket, soccer, cycling, athletics, as well as basketball, and is a member of the Cricket South Africa as well as SA Rugby medical committees, the Discovery Rockies Comrades Marathon panel of experts, and has served on tribunals for the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sports. Again, I'll just pause there to really give a round of applause to the professor as well. Okay, the last speaker for this evening, we've got Professor Philippe Gradija, is a full professor at Wits University, and he serves as the research and postgraduate coordinator in the Department of Exercise Science, as well as Sports Medicine within the Faculty of Health Sciences. He chairs the Research and Postgraduate Committee for the School of Therapeutic Sciences and supervises postgraduate research across health sciences. Philippa also leads the Wits Doctoral Academy, known as the WDA, in the research office and serves as Senate representative on the Senate Graduate Studies Committee, advancing postgraduate student support as well as academic governance. His research focuses on physical activity epidemiology, obesity epidemiology, as well as public health, with a strong commitment to translating evidence into accessible outputs. He serves on the executive board of the International Society of Behavioral Nutrition, as well as physical activity, as the African representative, contributing to numerous international research projects. His recent public scholarship includes a wide read Conversation Africa article on the health benefits of everyday movement, accompanied by a mural at Wits highlighting the importance of small, manageable actions of well-being. So we have a really good, number of speakers that are going to be taking us through today's webinar. So for us to proceed, I am going to hand over to Professor Torres to introduce the context of the day. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So lovely to be here. I myself am an alumni of Wits, so this is very exciting. I'm going to take the next 5 minutes to really set some context into the topic. And the topic is looking at movement as medicine. First of all, we're talking about movement. We're not necessarily talking exercise. We're talking about physical activity and movement. And that discussion will develop as the panelists talk to each other. Secondly, there is no doubt, especially in the last 10 years of physical activity and movement research, that exercise, there we go again, movement, physical activity reduces the risk of all-cause mortality, of cardiovascular mortality, of cancer mortalities, and the risk and prevents chronic diseases. And the percentages in the research range from 12% right through to 55%. So there's no doubt that the research shows that this is a tool, it is a medicine that can reduce the risk of chronic diseases that tend to come on as one ages. So I'm going to show you 2 slides because I'm going to try and give you the pervasiveness, intricacy, and eloquence that exercise and physical activity has in doing all of that. So Lerato, if I ask you to put up the first one, please. So here we have, it's just a little infographic for you. And on the left-hand side, I'm using my cursor, on your left-hand side are all your organ systems. And you can see that aging has, that's what it is. It's going to have certain effects on brain function. It's going to reduce the making of more neurons. It's going to increase the breakdown of neurons. It's going to increase cognitive alterations. In the cardiovascular system, it will decrease the tone of your blood vessels. It will decrease regional blood flow. It makes blood vessels more rigid. It decreases the amount of blood that the heart pushes out. So all of these things that you see under cardiovascular function happen with aging. Same with lung function. Same with muscle function, which is very important as we get older, because aging decreases balance and mobility, motor performance, and so forth and so on. Same with body composition. Same with metabolic metabolism. Now, if you see physical activity, on the other hand, has been shown to do totally the opposite of what aging does. But what I'd like to show you is on the right-hand side, okay? How does it do that? How does physical activity reduce the hallmarks of aging? And it does that very pervasively and intricately and eloquently via all these, you can see biochemistry 1.0, no, I think this is third year biochemistry, all these molecules that are released during exercise, molecular transducers that signal certain pathways, just like a medicine does, just like your cholesterol pill does. Exercise does the same thing. When you exercise, there are over 8,600 molecules that are released in the blood. And some of the names are written in these blocks here. And you can see that with that, they affect each organ system. The brain, for example, which that's my second slide I want to show you just now, but I'm just going to keep that for now. But in terms of loss of protein in muscle, it has these cellular molecules that actually decrease the effect of the molecule that breaks down muscle. And so therefore, it allows muscle to stay strong, to stay in an amount that is healthy. Not to talk about, what it can do for immunity, and we saw that through our COVID. So this is just a little picture to show you that, yes, just like Doctor said, exercise, physical activity is something simple. It's something that can be done, and the simplicity, in a sense, has made people not look at it as such an important pill, as such an important medicine, if you like. But nothing else can affect all your body organs at once in a very specific way to improve their outcomes, like keep your mitochondria healthy, kill and destroy the mitochondria that are not working. These unbelievable things that physical activity does, nothing else can do. So one more slide, please, Lerato. Now, our brains are obviously a very important part of us aging, and control the aging process in a big way. This infographic, this diagram, is showing you again these molecules and these particles and these pathways that when you exercise, they are released and exactly ameliorate and attenuate the bad effects of aging on the brain. So you can see that with exercise, we release BDNF, a neurotropic factor, and that in itself reduces brain cell inflammation, but it also increases network connectivity and causes neurogenesis, which means it makes new brain cells. And you can see with all the pathways, whatever aging does, exercise through these agents does the opposite. So when you're going out for a walk with your dog, or you're playing paddle, or you're doing Tai Chi, or you're going for a dance, you're actually taking your anti-aging medicine, your anti-aging pill. So I'm going to stop at that, and then thank you very much, Lerato. And then what I'd like to do is introduce well, let Prof. John Patricius come on first, and give him a little bit of time to maybe talk about something that is, that he's found in his experience. And then I'll introduce Prof. Graduate, and then we can, chat about each other. We're going to also keep looking at the chat box and answer any of your questions. Thanks, Prof. Patricius.
Thanks, Georgie. Thanks, Loretta, for the introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Georgie, thanks for those two very eloquent slides. I think they really speak to a lot of the work that you're involved in exercise science. And I think, for a simple clinician like me, the messaging there is that exercise and physical activity permeates into every aspect of our being. So there's not an organ system that isn't involved positively. And this is a slight change in narrative from years past, where we really always acknowledge the cardiovascular benefits, but the benefits extend so much further now in terms of reaching into every area, and our understanding of the metabolism of the body and how hormonal systems affect every organ system, I think is important. And perhaps Georgie, a bit later in the webinar, you can talk to this concept of exokines and myokines, which really reflects on the musculoskeletal system as an endocrine system. In other words, it acts as a hormonal system that integrates the positive effects of exercise across the body. So my take-home message, again, simple one: exercise affects every area of the body positively. I think that we know that there are specific guidelines for how much exercise one should do, which we can talk about. But very importantly, it's never too late to start, but the earlier you start, the better. And even small amounts count. And we've done research, as you know, at Wits, which really speaks to the efficacy of even small amounts of exercise. In terms of, other themes, I think some of the important research that we've done has been on the immune system. So the benefits of exercise, regular physical activity when you are ill, those people that have a history of regular physical activity and exercise do better. So you come through viral infections in particular a lot better. We've shown improved efficacy in vaccination programs where vaccines are administered. People who exercise, the vaccine seems to be more effective. Diabetes, we're about to publish a paper in the next couple of weeks in the British Journal of Sports Medicine showing that in type 2 diabetes, a cohort of South Africans who have a history of a year or two of regular physical activity before their diabetes was diagnosed actually had reduced dependence on insulin, and they actually had far better outcomes. So some good research in a South African context. And the last cohort I want to talk about is cancer. There's a lot of research in cancer across the world. It's a global concern, the number of cancers that are being diagnosed, I think partly due to our improved diagnostic ability. But certainly, again, in research that we've done at Wits through Wits Sport and Health Research Group, is that people that have a history of regular physical activity have better cancer outcomes. In other words, their cancer is less likely to progress, and they are less likely to die from the disease. So certainly the initial take-home message: exercise permeates every aspect of the body. The main areas that we are really focusing on: cardiovascular, the endocrine system, immune system, and cancers. And then perhaps, Georgie, we can talk a little bit about the subtle differences between what physical activity is, what exercise is, and what fitness is. I think that sometimes those terms are used interchangeably. And I'd maybe just clarify them quickly. Physical activity is really any form of activity that elevates your heart rate above resting levels. So even just getting out of a chair, walking up and down the stairs, And Lerato alluded to that earlier. Those things count. The small steps do count. We call them exercise snacks. Exercise itself is a deliberate implementation of physical activity over a defined period of time that elevates the heart rate significantly and often uses multiple organ systems. And then physical fitness is the benefits of that regular exercise. And we've discussed some of those already. So I'm going to keep an eye on these questions and answers that are coming through, which are excellent, but also allow Professor Gradich to take to the stage and talk to his areas of expertise, which are considerable in this area. And then we can come back and chat to some of these questions that are coming through, which are excellent. Thank you.
Georgie, if you're happy for me to pick up from where John left off.
Absolutely. Thank you, Prof.
And I just want to say thank you to the Alumni Office for inviting all of us. In fact, Georgie, John, and we're in different spaces, but every now and then we do cross paths. We all have an interest in, I think, simplifying the message around what's important and what's achievable, what we can do in terms of touch points, in terms of changing one's behavior, particularly shifting from a sedentary state, which is, in fact, I believe, is what we're in globally. We've gone from an evolutionary mismatch where we were, in fact, hunter-gatherer type beings, walking, gathering, hunting, climbing, carrying, to in the recent 60 years where we've become reliant on motor vehicles, public transport to get from point A to point B. We, in large part, office-based, and we do a lot of our work, and I must be honest, I do a lot of my own work seated. And so I thought for today, let's change things up a little bit, and I'm using a standing desk. So I've gone and shifted from a seated position to a standing position. And the other thing to mention and worth mentioning, and we can expand on this later, Georgie, is a thing around our reliance on screen time. So we've evolved from a state of being active to a position where we're reliant on the screens, and most of our connection is through a pathway of using screens, whether it be on our mobiles, our iPads, on our laptops. We communicate with colleagues in our offices, where we could use those opportunities to get up from our desks and simply change our position from a seated position. And Georgie alluded to this, and have the ability to go and connect with your colleague and actually strengthen the connections that you do have. So there's a lot of touch points to unpack. I think the message can be complicated, but I think the point of this webinar is to simplify things. And I'll touch very briefly on the mural that we put up on the Wits campus, which traverses the West and East campuses. It's just a moment to remind folk that we can use art, engage art and science in a way where we could prompt people around what they're actually doing in terms of their own movement and opportunities to shift from, for example, a needs-based movement system to one where we have the choice to move because we want to move. Georgie, I think I'll leave it there because I think there's a few questions in chat that we need to attend to.
Fantastic. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is pick up on a couple of questions, and then I'll also, ask some other questions to all of us. So I see a question that's come up and also asked again is, are the effects of aging on the body parts as a result of lack of exercise in the early years repairable in the later years? Okay, so if you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, it's never too late to start. The earlier the better, and your tissues when you're younger are certainly more responsive and adaptable. So that's where a lot of the benefits are going to be set. And we know that, for instance, let's take bone health, that the optimal period is for benefit of exercise is the peri-adolescent period. So that would be usually about 8 to 11 years of age in girls, probably 10 to 14 years in boys, and particularly in women where we stress the importance of bone health. The bone health that happens in that couple of years around adolescence will really determine your outcome ultimately, and is probably the equivalent of your bone loss from the time you're 30 years of age onwards. So significant gains are made during childhood. So I'd like to emphasize that point in answering this question, that one shouldn't ignore the importance of exercise in the developing body. It's absolutely critical, and the benefits are lasting. There's research that shows that adolescents who exercise retain some of the health benefits even if they stop exercising into adulthood. So those benefits are important. So no, you won't reverse all the changes that happened in early years, but there are still considerable benefits. And increasingly, we're realizing those that you will be able to, again, affect every organ system. In other words, you'll be able to control your blood pressure. You'll be able to decrease your risk of cardiac disease and stroke. You'll be able to help maintain good sugar levels. You'll be able to improve your immune function and, at least retain your bone health, if not improve it. And then in answering this, I'll also just add one other thing. We mustn't forget the psychological and social benefits of regular physical activity and exercise. Also very important. Exercising in groups, good for, good social benefits, and helps to prevent things like dementia. I mean, that's been shown to be a significant benefit. And the psychological benefits in decreasing the risks of depression and anxiety are also significant. So never too late to exercise. You won't, unfortunately, undo the harms that were done in younger years completely, but you can certainly improve your risk stratification and outlook going forward, no matter how old you are.
Prof. Gradich, you want to add something?
Yeah, can I also just say that I think if you have to consider our setting and compare to settings abroad. So in large part, we have a situation in Johannesburg and other major hubs in South Africa where our infrastructure is either breaking or it's broken, and it is in essence unsafe to participate and engage in physical activity in your neighborhood for various reasons. Maybe your pavement is unsafe to walk on because you can end up falling, or you don't have access to green space, or it's just unsafe because of motor vehicles just driving too fast. But I think as a nation, as a country, we're resilient. And so what I've seen, and this is my own opinion, I've seen an emergence of people and communities taking ownership of their own health and their own movement to such an extent that people take ownership of green space. And so where it was formerly unsafe, you find that there are communities cleaning up that space. For example, the Spruit, we've got Emerentia, where you can walk your dogs and it's in large part safe. We've got examples like the Park Run, which is clearly sustainable and is spread in most of major cities across the globe. people have picked up on that, and people participate en masse regularly over the weekend and typically on a Saturday. We've also got a situation where we have, and it's a roller coaster approach, but there are a number of opportunities for people to participate in mass participation events. And it speaks to Professor Patricius's point around social connection and social cohesion, which has direct and indirect effects on your personal health and your community's health. I think it's just really important to raise that as a point.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to add, and coming to this point, I think it's a good time to add two things for me. One is that I have seen research published on 70, 80-year-old. We're not there, so it's okay. Don't worry. But I've seen research published, and the changes that happen in their cardiorespiratory fitness, in their blood lactate transition threshold points, in their increase in muscle mass, in their slight improvement in bone density, happen at that age. And one of the important things is that if we're going to measure an indicator of what is going to influence your health outcomes, we have to get a cardiorespiratory fitness to a certain level. And the research shows that there's this point of a very small, and it's low, this low point of cardiorespiratory fitness, which is as low as 15 in terms of measuring VO2 oxygen consumption, 15 milliliters of kilograms of body mass per minute. This what we call 5 meds that the research refers to if you go and read it. And anything below 5 meds should be a red flag in any clinician's office. And that means that the prognosis and of any health disease they have is far worse, but also the chances and the propensity of them getting chronic disease is much higher. So cardiorespiratory fitness is a measure that should be paid attention to, like your blood pressure, like your temperature, all those clinical vital signs that are taken. Having said that, at the same time, it isn't just about cardiorespiratory fitness, in other words, your endurance exercise or your endurance physical activity or your walking. Resistance and strength training, and especially in the older age group, and high intensity training have been shown to be just as impactful in reducing mortality and improving health span. So there's a question here. Is all movement the same? Example, working in the garden, playing paddle, weightlifting, or walking. So there's a study, but that was done, a really wonderful study by the British Journal of Sports Medicine, and they took aerobic activity, endurance activity, and weightlifting. And when you combine weightlifting to your aerobic, you increase your, you reduce your risk of all-cause disease, all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease and cancer disease by an extra 22%. Put them together, and it's if you do both, you reduce your risk by 47%. Now, I don't know of any medicine that can actually do that. So I'm trying to say that, and this is the question for me, all movement, obviously different movements will create different physical strength, cardiovascular outcomes, and physiologically that is the truth. But it doesn't matter about the movement. It matters that you do the movement. It matters that you engage in that movement for a period of time so that you can get the benefits. So it's really the movement that you should love and the movement that's fun for you. And you have to find that. So, you know, for me, the most important part is find your movement, is find your fun movement. And once you've got that, you know, it doesn't matter. You don't have to play paddle because you can't. You don't have, you know, you got to do what you love. And that's, for me, all movement is the same, but not the same. And I hope I've explained that in a physiological term, but in an outcome term also. I don't know if the other panelists want to add anything to that question. Yes, Philippe?
Yeah, if I can jump in very quickly, I think in physical activity epidemiology, we're shifting away from an all or nothing approach. And obviously, you mentioned cardiorespiratory fitness, which is really important as a clinical marker. But for those that don't know, World Health Organization has often used 150 minutes moderate to vigorous physical activity as a cutoff point. But what about those that, for example, reach 140 minutes per week of physical activity, and then compare that to those that are over that threshold? Maybe there are other unknown signs that need to be addressed, unknown clinical signs that need to be addressed. So what's happening in the physical activity world is that, and data shows that there's an inverse and curvilinear relationship between physical activity and disease outcomes, such that the more active you are, the less risk, and you're able to, in terms of secondary and tertiary prevention, you're able to address disease. So my point around this is that in the South African and African and many low and middle income countries, we don't have enough data to completely understand that space. So we, in fact, are reliant on old data. So many of us, Georgie, John, myself included, are doing smaller types of epidemiological clinical trials. But only now we're shifting into a space of having a deeper understanding of what's happening in the South African space. And because previously we were quite reliant on the global north in terms of physical activity guidelines, watch this space, because in 5-10 years, we will come out with our own physical activity guidelines. And that's something worth mentioning as well, because that's a need in terms of understanding what we can do as South Africans and what's achievable in terms of movement. And that speaks directly to your point earlier, Georgie.
Really, I'll come in here because Philippe's made some outstanding comments there, and I think we can answer quite a few of these very good questions that have come through together by talking to two things. So just to carry on the theme of South African research, so we've started some really good physical activity research using cohorts in some of the insurance companies, some of the medical insurance companies, looking at their data, which is very powerful. But again, unfortunately, speaks to a specific demographic. It is biased in its specific area. But when Philippe says watch this space, a lot of it has to do with the new facilities we have at Wits, where we have now a wonderful new sport and exercise home donated by alumni, by you, those of you out there, particularly a family, the Zylstra family. And so we have now the Zylstra Sports Complex at Wits, which is designed to help offer a lot of the programs that people are talking about, the chronic disease programs and exercise programs, as well as teach about the benefits of sport and exercise medicine, and also to research it. So I think a facility like that on our doorstep in our university is going to make a huge contribution towards our understanding of what exercise needs are in an African population. And we're looking forward to be able to contribute significantly to that field. What we do know now, let's put some numbers to it, is if you look at the World Health Organization guidelines, they'll tell you that they recommend about 300 minutes a week of moderate intensity activity. So that would be activity where you're not huffing and puffing, you can still breathe and talk to the person next to you, or 150 minutes a week of more intense exercise. That's where you're breathing deeply, your heart rate's at about 80% of predicted maximum or more. Interestingly, speaking to some of the things that Georgie mentioned, they now recommend 2 20-minute sessions of strength training a week as well, which speaks to the benefits of resistance training. So not all exercise is the same. All exercise is good, but there are different benefits from different forms of exercise, and ideally one should try and mix those up. Endurance component, different intensities, and have a strength component in there as well. Fun is important. Someone's asked about rebounding, which is fine. Now, there's nothing wrong with rebounding. If that's how you get your heart rate up and that's what you enjoy, absolutely there are going to be benefits from it. And there's another question about joint disease, which is common. What about arthritis, painful joints, and exercise? Well, I think this is where you need clinical guidance. You need to speak to your clinicians, your doctors, your physiotherapists, biokineticists, and be guided. But again, movement for joint disease is good. The worst thing you could do for a degenerate and damaged joint is just lie in bed. Everything will then just deteriorate that much quicker. Joints rely on fluid that moves around the joint, and that can only happen with joint movement. That doesn't mean it has to be high impact or prolonged, but certainly movement of some sort is going to benefit that joint rather than just remaining sedentary. Moving the joint is ultimately going to be better, and taking weight through the joint is also going to help, as long as that's controlled and clinically guided. I'll leave it there.
There's another little question here, and we've touched on it, but maybe we can just, it's important. And that's how valuable is a number of short bursts of exercises throughout the day compared to one long session? Is that beneficial? And the answer is absolutely yes. So research has shown that, even 1 minute bouts of exercise have good health outcomes. And this is where it becomes important to start somewhere. The biggest benefit with exercise, the biggest changes, the most impactful changes that happen are going from naught to something. And that is where the most risk reduction in mortality happens, and in prevention of chronic disease. So absolute, the snacking of exercise or snacking of physical activity is really something to try and put into our lives because of the lives that we are living. I want to end off with some practical suggestions of how to get physical activity in your life. So I'll leave that till the end. That was the one thing. Yes, Prof, you want, Prof. Gradich, go ahead.
No, I'll jump in. I was just considering some easy hacks, but I'll jump in later.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I want to end with the easy hacks. And then, this real question, Prof. Patricius, how do you keep up movement with joint or back pain?
Well, I think clinical guidance is important because you've got to find the reason for the joint and back pain. A big bulging disc is different to a little bit of wear in some of the joints in the back. So finding the reason for your pain is important. Having it treated is the next step. And then how to integrate exercise as part of that treatment and maintenance is the next step. But certainly what I will say is that generally for joint pains, and actually even for many other injuries, movement is part of the treatment. Just remaining sedentary is going to do more harm than good. So finding that sweet spot, that what we call envelope of function, or that comfort zone where you can exercise to benefit the body but not hurt it, is important. There's another question here about, can you exercise too much over your lifetime? I think if you've got that much time that you can do all this exercise, possibly yes, and you could do injury to yourself and then have to try and modify your exercise routine. And probably the benefits of exercise are most for those who are sedentary. So starting off will give you the most benefits. And then, the benefits will increase linearly, but then start to plateau. And perhaps it will dip off a little bit. So, we have this concept of an overtraining syndrome. If you train too much and don't allow yourself to recover, then your tissues and your body are going to break down, which is another nice message actually to give, is you actually become fitter while you're resting. The stress of exercise gives your body the challenge, but you need those rest periods or relative rest periods to allow the adaptations to take place. If you just keep exercising and exercising and exercising, you're not going to make the necessary adaptations, and you're going to break down more than you build up. So yeah, what we call periodizing your training and building in high intensity, lower intensity, and recovery periods is critical. And if you have an injury, you just have to do that more carefully and in a structured way.
Thank you. And Neville, nice to hear from you. And this is obviously a group of older adults that trained at the Wits gym. And, you know, this is where the alumni become so important with respect to allowing us to now be able to bring those sessions back into a complex that allows us, and we have more resources. So yes, that will all come back, and hopefully we'll see you soon. But the wonderful thing about this story for me is that this group of older adults have continued to exercise, and they've kept it going, and they said a good grounding was established. So, you know, that for me is quite exciting. But we'll see you soon back in our new building.
We're back. We're back. That's the message.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look at other questions, colleagues. If you
Blood thinners, there's one on blood thinners and exercise. Actually,
Okay.
blood thinners, if you're on blood thinners, you should be exercising. So it's not a contraindication. You just got to look at the type of exercise and discuss it with your physician in terms of high risk, relatively high risk exercise. You might not want to cycle at a high rate and risk falling and bleeds, but certainly the exercises are going to be beneficial to your overall health: swimming, running, walking, gym activities, all very positive. So not a contraindication. You should be exercising as part of a healthy lifestyle plan. I think that's important.
there's some
Another
nice-
question on running and whether it's, running is bad for your joints. No, it's actually good for your joints. I mean, the new research is actually showing that osteoarthritis of the knees actually benefits from a moderate amount of impact walking and running included. That doesn't mean you have to run half marathons, but some jogging at a reasonable pace is probably going to benefit those joints more than do you harm, including all the other benefits, of course, to the rest of the body. So, as long as it's done in a graduated way and controlled, and if you're not sure, with an expert who can guide you, generally you can introduce even impactful exercises to the benefit of your body, even if you have a degenerate joint. So don't be scared of it. Just look at introducing it in a graduated way.
Prof. Gradic, have you seen any question you'd like to tackle? Any other questions?
I think there's a lot of overlap around what people are asking, and I think John's answered them. In fact, I think if you read the evidence, the idea of starting slow and progressing at your own comfortable pace, rather than being driven by, for example, joining a paddle or running community where you feel pressured to get up to speed. In fact, it doesn't have to be that way. And if you may, in fact, risk injury, getting injury if you do have that approach. I think find a group that you're comfortable with, and where you can build friendships and connections, but also bear in mind that if you have a lifelong approach to changing your health in small chunks, and keeping the analogy of snacking, but what's attainable and what's achievable to you may be different to the person sitting next to you or the person that you engage with on a regular basis. Sometimes exercise or physical activity needs to be customized and tailored specifically to you, particularly if you've got a diagnosed or existing condition that needs to be addressed together with medication. And obviously exercise can act as an adjunctive treatment in a sense to help you have better outcomes in the long run.
I just want to tackle one quickly, and that's at what heart rate from resting position do we get optimal benefits? And then it goes into, I'll let you gentlemen answer. The second part is all exercise good for the human body, for example, high rocks, F45. As a physio, I sometimes wonder whether bodies benefit or break down with certain new age exercises on offer. So let me tackle the first one. And the idea is that physiologically, when we're talking physiology, you have to get your metabolism obviously to a point where physical activity is going to start the changes that we want through stroke volume, cardiac output, vasodilation, all those physiological things that happen. Now, a simple way, and that we can measure really technically with the equipment we have in the Wits Zilstra, but a simple way to know whether you at that heart rate for you, that it's sort of a threshold, if you like, is the story of a talk test. So if you're walking and you can talk to your mate easily without having to take a breath, that's moderate. If you can talk but you can't sing your favorite Beyonce song, now that's going into vigorous exercise. So as long as you are in moderate exercise, and even if you started light exercise, okay, this is the crazy thing about exercise, it's fine. But if you're asking me about what heart rate is the most optimal, you want to get yourself to talking, but to be able to talk and sing. Okay, so you can sing your favorite Beyonce song without having a breath. Can you answer the other one about, these new age exercises that are on offer that people do like?
Yeah, I think, it comes back to doing what you want to do. What I like about those is two things. One is they integrate cardiovascular and resistance training. You sort of, the high rocks type activities. I think they do that well. The second thing is that there's a spate of new research which shows the benefit of high intensity interval training or HIIT training. So pushing your heart rate up and then coming back down and doing it again in spurts seems to have additional benefits in the way it challenges the body's organ systems. So those actually have huge benefit, and people often extremely well conditioned and healthy who do those, but they are demanding, and going into that without a good exercise base and building up your conditioning is not advised. So I think there's nothing against the exercise protocols per se, but it's just how one evolves into them. And there's a couple of other interesting questions here that I'd like to perhaps tackle. We've had a question about intensity and resistance training with sugar and cholesterol control. And absolutely, it's no longer just your long, slow walk that's seen as beneficial. Resistance training and interval training with high intensity has significant benefits on sugar and cholesterol control. And then another question about challenging the body, in various ways. When you've been used to exercise over the years, adding different types of exercise can certainly help you in other areas. So cognitively, it can be a huge benefit. We've discussed the social benefits, improving balance, if you can work on that, change of directions, reaction times. So if you take on new activities which involve different directions, different intensities, and different exercise challenges, absolutely, you challenge your body's ability to adapt, and you reinvigorate the benefits of exercise that come through. And there's one last question, which is medically orientated, which I'll tackle, and that's about hypermobility. People with hypermobility, what type of exercise? Well, I look at it simplistically, and all of us, we're trying to balance flexibility and strength. And if you're hypermobile, you have stretchy ligaments and tendons, then you need to work harder on the strength component. So you just generally need to juggle with that. And if it's a sort of clinical rheumatological diagnosis, you should get some expert input on that in terms of what's best for you, and specifically those areas and joints that are affected by the hypermobility. But there's every area can benefit from exercise. It's really just a combination of exercises that are best suited for you and your condition.
So John, can I just answer the last question that has come through, and it's around the importance of GPs considering exercise as medicine. Earlier in the talk, it was alluded to that we have, in a sense, infiltrated into medicine undergraduates, and stressing the importance of exercise as a tool, as a sort of vital sign. And we are doing a lot of work in that space. In fact, from the tools that we've used in the public health sphere, we can ask two simple questions around how active people are and how regularly they're active to gain a deep understanding of as a vital sign how active they are and how the population at population level, we as a community of practitioners, not only GPs, are addressing health, physical health. There have been a lot of questions, I think, around that speak to specifics around medicine's use related to exercise and specific conditions. I think the point being here that those should be fielded to your GP in conjunction with what has been shared here. Our aim here is just to point out that movement is important, and particularly if one has been sedentary, has had a lifestyle of being sedentary and sit for long periods of time, it can lead to adverse health outcomes. And here's an opportunity to reflect on one's health and change things through simple movement. And just to share that in 45 minutes, I burnt 201 calories just by standing.
Yeah, that's a useful measure.
So
Yeah.
there's 2 minutes or so. If the next 2 minutes, I can ask you to just give your quick opinion on practical ways, hacks to incorporate more movement into our busy lives.
So yeah, can I pick up on that? I think most of us are desk bound. We are sedentary, as I mentioned earlier. Most of us commute. No, we're not asking you to stop using your car or using public transport, but to consider, for example, so if you're using either forms of transport, to perhaps park further away, use park at the parking that's further away from the entrance to your office. In a sense, you're getting an opportunity to get some steps in. So it's around geography as well. For example, if you need to use the bathroom, don't use the bathroom that's closest to you. Maybe go one floor up. So in a way, you're climbing stairs, you're activating your musculature, plus you're activating your need for endurance. And then use alarms if possible on your computers, on your watches. So use it like a 20 to 30-minute alarm. I know Georgia and I don't often take lunches. We often sit at our desk, but try to take a lunch, take a walking lunch if possible. And you'll find that you're able to get around 1,000 to 1,000 steps in your day because you're taking a walking lunch. Consider walking meetings, for example. My final one is around connection. So instead of dropping an email to your colleague who's literally around the corner from you, get up from your desk and go chat with your colleague. And uh, George and I often talk about research, and sometimes in email there's an opportunity for misunderstanding. But when you connect with your colleague, you find that you end up having a debate oftentimes, but it flows into an enriching outcome, and it strengthens social connection. Thanks, Georgie.
Prof. John, some parting words?
Quickly, and if my children heard me saying this, they'd roll their eyes. But in my turn, it's make your day harder. Make your day harder. That's something I live by. So take the stairs. Honestly, take the stairs. It's if you're on the third floor, just walk up those 3 flights of stairs. It'll do you good. Use any opportunity you can to just make your day physically a little bit harder. And those exercise snacks add up. But honestly, if you haven't been a regular exerciser, starting to plan it as part of your day, like you brush your teeth. You'd never, ever go a day without brushing your teeth. Same thing with physical activity, exercise. Plan it as part of it. You won't want to do without it ultimately, because you'll start experiencing those benefits and it'll become an integral part of your life.
Absolutely positive. And the thing is that it's amazing when you start planning it and you have, say, a 15-minute exercise session planned and you don't feel like it, but you say, okay, I'll do 5 minutes of it. And you start the 5 minutes, you will finish the 15 minutes, because that's what exercise does. Exercise makes you feel better, leaves you better than when you came into it. Thank you very much. I'm going to give over to Doctor to just say bye-bye to everyone. Thank you, Professor Patricius and Professor Gradic. It was lekker talking to you.
Thanks, Georgie. That was fun. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, alumni. Thanks for joining from around the world.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Not a problem. Really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much to all our professors and to Dr. Godongwana as well for the welcome. My name is Lerato from Alumni Relations, and I just want to just wrap up and say thank you to everyone that was able to join us from all over. Your questions were really amazing, and I think everybody benefited a great deal from this webinar. I know I certainly did, and I'm hoping to actually start moving intentionally. So yes, let's get moving, let's get healthy, and look out for the Zelstra Sports Complex opening soon and see what's on offer there. And if you want to reach out to our professors, they are available on LinkedIn. Their email addresses are also on the Wits website, or you can reach out to me and I will help you get in touch with them. But with that, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you at the next one. Professors, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the
Bye,
best,
everybody.
everyone.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.